Good morning and welcome to the 33rd meeting of the Education and Culture Committee in 2013. Could I ask that everyone present switch off their mobile phones, please, and any other electronic devices they may happen to have on them, as they do affect the broadcasting system. Today we are starting Stage 2 consideration of the Children and Young People Scotland Bill. Can I welcome to the committee Aileen Campbell, the Minister for Children and Young People, and her accompanying officials. Officials are, of course, not permitted to participate in the formal proceedings. A number of non-committee members will participate in today's proceedings, so therefore can I welcome Mary Fee and Siobhan McMahon, who have both joined us for the start. Mark MacDonald will be joining us during the course of the meeting when we reach his amendments. Now, everyone should have with them a copy of the bill as introduced, the first marshalled list of amendments that was published on Friday, and the first groupings of amendments, which sets out the amendments in the order in which they will be debated. We will not go beyond Part 4 of the bill today, and there will be one debate on each group of amendments. Depending on the progress we make, I will conclude proceedings at a suitable point, and any amendments that we do not reach today will be dealt with at our next meeting on the 7th of January. For each debate, I will call the member who lodged the first amendment in that group to speak to and move that amendment, and to speak to all other amendments in the group. All other members with amendments in the group, including the Minister if relevant, will then be asked to speak to them. Members who have not lodged amendments in the group but who wish to speak should indicate that by catching my eye or the attention of the clerks if they wish to contribute. If the Minister has not already spoken on a group, then I will invite the Minister to contribute to the debate just before moving to the winding up speech. The debate on the group will be concluded by me inviting the member who moved the first amendment to the group to wind up. Following debate on each group, I will check whether the member who moved the first amendment in the group wishes to press it to a vote or to withdraw it. If they wish to press ahead, I will put the question on that amendment. If a member wishes to withdraw their amendment after it has been moved, they must seek approval to do so. If any member objects, the committee immediately moves to the vote on that amendment. If any member does not want to move their amendment when called, they should say not moved. And please note that any other MSP can choose to move that amendment if they so wish. However, if no one moves the amendment, I will immediately call the next amendment on the marshalled list. Only committee members are allowed to vote. Voting is by division is by a show of hands. It's important that members keep their hands clearly raised in there so that the clerks can get the opportunity to record the vote. The committee is required to indicate formally that it has considered and agreed each section of the bill, and so I will put a question on each section at the appropriate point. And with all of those rules, guidance and comments, we are going to now begin day one of Stage 2. And can I begin by calling Amendment 119 in the name of Liam MacArthur, group with other amendments as shown in the groupings. Liam MacArthur to move Amendment 119 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Convener. I'm conscious how much ground we have to cover this morning, so we'll try to be as brief as I can, though that may be slightly tricky given how many amendments I have in the grouping. Essentially, the purpose of the amendments here is to allow the bill to do what it originally said on the tin by underscoring the central importance of children's rights within our society and ensuring children's views and interests are taken into account by decision makers across the public sector. During Stage 1, we heard from a number of organisations who argued strongly for full incorporation of the UNCRC into this bill, and while, like others, I was not persuaded of the case, I certainly recognised the need to strengthen the provisions as they currently stand. Indeed, the evidence from both the Law Society and the Faculty of Advocates argued that the bill appears to be quite diluted in terms of children's rights and adds little to what is already in place. Similarly, the committee observed that the duty on ministers represented, quote, little more than a restatement of existing obligations. As such, therefore, I think there is a real risk that the bill represents a potential missed opportunity unless the changes I'm proposing are agreed. Turning to the amendments specifically, 119, which I have pleasure in moving, would strengthen the duty on ministers to have due regard to the requirements of UNCRC, rather than simply a requirement to keep these under consideration. This reflects the initial intention of ministers, the expectations of those in the sector about what this bill would deliver, and indeed what similar legislation in Wales is beginning to achieve. Amendment 190, meanwhile, recognises that while full incorporation of UNCRC into the bill did not find support within the committee, there was a feeling that ways should be found to incorporate, or at least better reflect, the key articles 3 and 12 in the bill, upholding the best interests of the child and ensuring the child's voice is heard. In a similar vein, Amendment 120 seeks to beef up the requirement for ministers to report on the action they have taken, detailing how they have complied with the duty placed upon them. This does not seem an unreasonable request and requirement to place upon ministers. These three amendments are mirrored by others 123, 196 and 125, which seek to ensure a consistent approach across public authorities. Many will argue with no little justification that this approach is already a feature of their decision-making processes, but it's difficult to understand how this differs from what ministers themselves might argue. If we are to achieve the sort of cultural shift and practical benefits from properly respecting and reflecting children's rights, having consistency across the public sector would appear to be essential, particularly if one thinks that many of the decision-making that directly affects children takes place at the local level. And finally, Amendment 194 picks up another recommendation from the committee at stage 1, that there should be a requirement on ministers to undertake a child rights assessment in relation to bills that are presented to Parliament. There is now an established method of carrying out such assessments, and I think this would give confidence that the principles of this bill are being delivered across the board. In response to the committee's recommendation, the Minister indicated that she felt that the requirement to undertake CRIAs could be delivered through, quote, non-legislative means. But as Together point out in their briefing for today's session, in its UNCRC action plan, Do the Right Thing, back in 2008, the government committed to trialling CRIAs. Since then, there has not been a single CRIA undertaken. Finally, in terms of the other amendments in this group, I think these offer additional improvements to the bill, though I may have an opportunity to respond a little more in detail once I've heard what the Minister and Neil Bibby have said in addressing their proposed changes. Meantime, I hope these relatively brief comments are helpful to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Can I call Neil Bibby to speak to Amendment 195 and other amendments in the group? Neil.
Thanks, Convener. I'll also try and be as brief as possible. I'd like to speak to Amendment 195 in my name concerning the introduction of a children's rights implementation scheme through which ministers would have to outline the arrangements they have made and will take to safeguard and promote children's rights, and to Amendments 169 and 172 to 175 in my name, which aim to ensure that children's services plans are prepared and related services are provided with a view to securing better effect of the UNCRC requirements. On Amendment 195, members will be aware of the committee's call for the Scottish Government to provide an explanation of the practical actions it intends to take to increase awareness of children's rights. And I think these amendments address that point directly. This would involve a model similar to that currently used in Wales, where the Children's Rights Scheme sets out the arrangements that Welsh ministers will have in place to make sure that they and Welsh Government staff comply with the duties placed on them and report on the compliance arrangements every 5 years. Although the Welsh measure has only been in place for a relatively short period of time, the positive impact of an implementation scheme in Wales is beginning to become clear. More children and young people are involved in influencing legislation. There have been more child-friendly government publications, and ministers have been accountable in their consideration of children's rights when developing policy and legislation. I know the Scottish Government often talk about the desire to make Scotland the best place to grow up in the world, and I'm sure they will also be keen to adopt best practice elsewhere in these isles in the UK when it comes to implementing children's rights. On Amendments 169 and 172 to 175, there is a concern that there is a disjoint between the provision in Part 1 of the bill around reporting on children's rights and Part 3 around children's services planning. These amendments specifically embed children's rights in children's services planning to provide a framework through which public bodies can safeguard, support and promote the rights and well-being of children in their area. I know the Scottish Government have said they remain open to suggestions regarding how the bill might be strengthened to support these aims. I would therefore urge the Minister, the Government and members to join organisations like Children First, Together, Bernardo Scotland and Scotland's Commissioner for Children and Young People in supporting amendments 195, 169 and 172 to 175 in my name, which will help to provide a strategic and comprehensive approach to executing the duties of ministers and improve their accountability in doing so, as well as improving children's services plans. I'd also like to state my support for the amendments in the name of Liam MacArthur. On Amendment 190, on Article 3 and 12, the issue of acting in the best interests of the child raised in the UNCRC in 1959 has been integral to the practice of law, social work and education for many years. been present in the Scottish Child's Law since the Guardianship of Infants Act 1925. In more recent times, the practice has been to move towards greater involvement in children, particularly since the 1995 Children Act. To place a duty on ministers to do so would be in practice what tends to happen already, and I think this should be supported. The issue of Article 12, children's voices in decision-making, is one that has been embraced by those working with children, and one that I would also support. The Scottish Government have consistently said they are committed to listening to the views of children and young people, so I expect them to be supportive of these amendments. But we do need to guard against consultation being tokenistic, so I would welcome, if the Government aren't willing to support these amendments, clarification and details from the Government on what measures it will take to ensure this does not happen. I also support Liam MacArthur's amendments on child rights impact assessment as an important tool to ensuring children's rights, and I will be supporting Amendment 119 on the due regard amendment. And finally, I would urge members to support these amendments if we are to ensure that this legislation is suitably ambitious and avoids becoming, as Liam MacArthur said, a missed opportunity.
Thank you very much. Can I ask the Minister to speak now to Amendment 89 and other amendments in the group? Minister.
Thank you, Convener. Amendment 89 in my name is a minor amendment intended to ensure consistency in language elsewhere in the Bill, for example in sections 32 and sections 52. Now, turning to the other amendments in the group, Amendments 119, 120, 123 and 125 seek to place duties on Scottish ministers and other relevant public authorities to have due regards to the rights set out in the UNCRC and to report on how they are satisfying those duties. I am clear that duties of this nature would not guarantee the type of nuanced approach which is likely to best serve the interests of children. I understand that people will look to the experience of the Welsh Government, who have introduced broadly similar duties to those now being proposed by Liam MacArthur. In response, I would note that we are happy to draw on the experience of others. However, what we ultimately need is an approach that is fit for purpose in Scotland, reflecting our constitutional arrangements, our distinct legal system and the range of other factors which make us unique. The notion of having due regard to a piece of international law is untested in Scotland, and we have no way of knowing how the courts would interpret and enforce a duty of this nature. We don't think that this bill should place responsibility squarely at the door of courts for testing and directing our approach to a treaty, the wording of which does not always easily translate into clear, enforceable law. Yet this is potentially what could be delivered through a due regard duty. With regards to the extension of a due regard duty to other public bodies, COSLA have made quite clear that they would not wish to see a duty of this nature placed on their members at this time. The bill already places a host of duties on public bodies which will result in better protection and promotion of children's rights, and the changes being proposed are deliverable. Amendment 194 would result in a duty being placed on Scottish ministers to undertake a child's right impact assessment for all future Scottish Government bills. As indicated to the committee at stage 1, ministers recognise the importance of assessing the impact that our policies have on our children and their rights. And that's why we are taking steps to produce non-legislative guidance for use by civil servants and ministers on this issue. However, it is not necessary or desirable for the bill to prescribe exactly how impact assessment should be undertaken. Our experience in relation to equalities legislation would support that view. There is also the issue of proportionality to be addressed, and I recognise the value of submitting robust impact assessments on those pieces of legislation which are likely to impact on children, but not all bills require this step to be taken. So we should focus our activity on issues which are most important to our children and young people. Amendments 190 and 196 would have the effect of placing a new duty on Scottish ministers and other relevant public bodies to have children's best interests as a key consideration where those children are likely to be affected by a decision. And we have some concern around the introduction of a concept such as this. The UNCRC clearly recognises that the best interests of a child should be a primary consideration in all matters affecting them, and we are supportive of this as a principle. However, we don't think it makes sense to pursue this aim through blanket duties on ministers and public bodies, particularly where it might lead to an increased emphasis on the courts and on unnecessary and unhelpful litigation. Instead, we should make targeted and enforceable changes to the law which will guarantee the changes we want to see, but without delivering the accompanying risks, as I've just described. And that's exactly what we're doing through, for example, the Criminal Justice Bill, which is being considered by the Parliament. On Amendment 195, we recognise the benefit of having clear and robust plans in place to support further recognition of the UNCRC, and we intend to provide for this on the face of the bill through our own amendment, Amendment 88, which will be discussed separately. Again, I feel there is an issue of proportionality to be addressed in respect of Amendment 195. It could result in fairly onerous obligation to publish fairly frequent reports, and I'm concerned that we run the risk of report overload. It also prescribes fairly broad-ranging consultation arrangements which, whilst well-intentioned, do not need to appear in primary legislation. Amendments 169, 172, 174 and 175 seek to ensure that children's services planning aims to address children's rights as set out in the UNCRC. And we've been clear about wanting public bodies to report on what they are doing to further the UNCRC, and that is why we have placed duties on them in Part 1. We don't feel it appropriate to impose a further duty through Part 3. Moreover, by focusing on how services are safeguarding, supporting and promoting the well-being of children, we believe that planning will be given practical effect to the UNCRC. So it's for all those reasons I've just stated. I don't support Amendments 119, 190, 120, 194, 95, 123, 196, 125, 169, 172, 174 and 175, and support my own Amendment 89.
Thank you very much. Minister, can I call Joan McAlpine?
Convener. Yeah, I think these amendments, I would be concerned that it introduced a lack of flexibility into the area, and also perhaps would be a bit too heavy-handed. As the Minister said, due regard is an untested duty. We don't know the risks of it, and only 15% of respondents in consultation said that they felt that the duties didn't go far enough in Section 1. UNCRC is an aspirational document and it doesn't easily translate into legislation, and we took evidence from Professor Norrie on that at stage 1. The UNCRC makes clear the best interests of the child should be a primary consideration, and these amendments don't seem to put the best interests as a primary consideration, as the Minister indicated, only a key one. And that seems to be an alternative legal concept and not consistent with UNCRC. I welcome the fact that the government's undertaking CRIAs non-legislatively, and I think that will, as the Minister said, give us more flexibility should circumstances change in the future. Turning to Neil Bibby's amendments, I feel that an implementation scheme on the face of the bill would be too inflexible, disproportionate and onerous, and much of what is proposed will already be given effect through the more proportionate Bill Section 1.
Okay, thank you. Call Liz Smith.
Thank you, Convener. I've listened very carefully to what I think has probably been the most challenging and perhaps one of the most interesting parts of the bill over the course of stage 1 and in the period of preparing for this morning. And I think the difficulty for me has been that the legal advice which we've received on several aspects of this from both the Scottish Government and from many other groups who've been talking about the UNCRC, particularly those who are in favour of incorporation. I find myself in a position where I think it's been quite difficult to work through that, because the legal advice, in my opinion, has not been particularly clear, and I fully recognise that the government is not in a position to publish all its guidance on that, and I fully understand that. But I think it would have been helpful if we'd had a slightly more detailed response to the arguments, particularly for those who were arguing about why full incorporation was a legitimate way forward, because I can understand some of the points that they were raising in that respect. I've listened very carefully to Mr MacArthur this morning. I have a great deal of sympathy for the amendments that he's proposing, because I think he's trying to ensure that there is a balance taken between not incorporating UNCRC into Scots law, but at the same time to ensuring that there is more of a level playing field and also an ability to try to ensure that we are thinking more carefully about some of the duties which should fall on ministers, and particularly on other public bodies and local authorities. Having said that, I think we're in a difficult area when it comes to this phrase due regard. I'm not entirely comfortable with the interpretation of due regard. Maybe Mr MacArthur could say a little bit more of that when he's summing up. I certainly have a difficulty with Amendment 194 when it comes to the children's rights impact assessment. I just worry about just how far that would take some of these issues. I'm interested to hear Mr MacArthur's view on that. Again, I have some sympathy for Mr Bibby's amendments, but again, I'm not entirely confident, Mr Bibby, that we thought through about the bureaucratic, in some cases financial burden that might be put upon local authorities as a result of that. I think your intentions are absolutely clear. That's good, but I'm not sure that they actually match that. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you very much. If no other member wishes to speak, can I call Liam MacArthur to wind up and to indicate whether he wishes to press or withdraw Amendment 119?
Thank you very much, Convener, and thank you to all those who have contributed. I've listened carefully to what has been said. Certainly in terms of the Government's Amendment 89, I have no difficulty, obviously, with that. Neil Bibby's clarification of the purpose and intent of his amendments, I think, has reassured me in that regard, and I'm happy to support those. But I think fundamentally this is a bill about extending children's rights. And I think the evidence that we received at stage 1 was fairly clear that as things stand, the bill does not do anything to progress children's rights in key areas. And therefore, I think if this is not to be, as I said earlier, a missed opportunity, then I think we do need to look at stiffening up the provisions in Part 1 of this bill. I respect what the Minister said in terms of providing something that is tailored to Scotland's needs and Scotland's legal structure, and that allows an appropriate level of flexibility. But nevertheless, I think the evidence that we've received from a wide range of bodies operating in this area together, Children First, Barnardo's, UNICEF, to name but a few, indicates their concerns that this bill does not go far enough in doing what it was supposed to suggest, what it said it would do on the tin. In terms of CRIAs, I think this is particularly disappointing to hear the response of the Government. It was the recommendation of the committee that we did need to go further in relation to CRAs, if not in terms of every bill, certainly all of those pieces of legislation put forward that would touch upon the interests of children and young people, and therefore certainly when the time comes I would intend to press that amendment as well, but for the time being I press Amendment 119. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question is that Amendment 119 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed, therefore there is a division. Where all those members who support Amendment 119, please show. Okay. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 119, 4 for and 5 against, with no abstentions. That amendment is not agreed to. And I call Amendment 190 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 119. Liam MacArthur, to move or not move?
To move.
The question is that Amendment 190 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. We're not all agreed, therefore there will be a division. Could those members who wish to support Amendment 190 please show? Okay, thank you. All those opposed to 190? Okay, abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 190, 4 in favour, 5 against and no abstention. That amendment is therefore not agreed to. I call Amendment 191 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, grouped with Amendments 192, 197, 199, 200, 201 and 202. Siobhan McMahon to move Amendment 191 and to speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. The reason we require the addition of the UNCRPD is to give an additional assurance that disabled children's views are embedded in the bill and given due regard and consideration in all aspects of policy development. I understand that the Government are satisfied that the UNCRC requirements are sufficient to provide this. However, given that recent publications, including a report commissioned by the Scottish Commissioner for Children and Young People entitled "It All Comes Down to Money," have demonstrated a great and urgent need for disabled children's voices to be heard, I believe that my amendments will provide that voice and give greater assurance that the UNCRC requirements could ever provide. I also understand that the Scottish Government do not wish to highlight specific groups of children. However, given that the bill specifically mentions looked after children, I would argue that the precedent has already been set and that it would be remiss of this bill not to mention disabled children in the way that I propose. The inclusion of the UNCRPD Article 7, which places a duty on the Member State to take adequate account of children's views. Though the UNCRC includes Article 22, with reference to the rights of disabled children to enjoy those of others, taking specific regard of the UNCRPD would entrench the belief that disabled children are valued agents within Scottish society. More emphasis should be placed on ensuring that Children and Young People Bill make adequate provision for the rights of disabled children to be realised. Embedding it into primary legislation would build a strong foundation for public authorities around Scotland to adjust their practice and procedures to reflect the national intentions to uphold disabled children's rights. Integrating UNCRPD Article 7 into this legislation at this stage would incur few additional resources to those already accounted for by establishing steps to consider the UNCRC. Yet if this is postponed until a later stage, as it is likely the UNCRPD will be legislated for at some point, the process of repeating and revising legislation to account for this would require further costs. Therefore, I move my amendments.
Thank you very much. Can I call Neil Bibby?
Thanks, yes. I welcome the amendments in the name of Siobhan McMahon because I think they raise important issues about the greater focus and consideration that is needed on the rights of disabled children. We have a stated policy aim of getting it right for every child. However, in order to get it right for every child, we need to ensure that we close, not widen, the equalities gap between disabled and non-disabled children. We'll come to a specific focus we need for children living in poverty in later amendments, but here we need to ensure that the Children and Young People Bill makes adequate provision for the rights of disabled children to be realised. As Siobhan McMahon said, putting it into primary legislation would provide a strong foundation for public authorities to adjust practices to reflect national intention to uphold disabled children's rights. And the Health and Social Care Alliance have said that integrating UNCRPD Article 7 into legislation would incur few additional resources. I understand there is also precedent for integrating the UNCRPD principles into legislation, both in the Mental Capacity Act 2003 and the Social Care Self-Directed Support Scotland Act 2013. Disabled children can be some of the most disadvantaged and vulnerable children in Scotland. I believe these amendments are needed to make sure that this bill will make a substantial difference to the lives of disabled children and to make sure this bill is not a missed opportunity. I therefore support the amendments in Siobhan McMahon's name.
Thank you very much. Can I call Claire Adamson?
Thank you, Convener. I've listened very carefully to my colleagues and absolutely understand their intention in moving this amendment. However, I do have concerns in that the principle of this bill is getting it right for every child, and that includes children with disability, with special needs. And I think if at this stage we looked to compartmentalise specific groups and not all others, there's a danger that we would make special provision for some children, and by the nature of that, the unintended consequences would be disadvantaging other groups, specifically in the protected characteristics area. So I don't think this is necessary, and I think the UNCRC does cover all children up to 18, including those with disability.
Thank you very much. Call Liz Smith.
I have every sympathy for the intention of this set of amendments. I think there are unintended consequences which could make it quite difficult in the rest of the legislation, and I think perhaps we need to think that through a bit more carefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I call the Minister?
Convener, all amendments in this section seek to place requirements on Scottish ministers and public bodies to take steps with the aim of furthering the rights set out under Article 7 of the UNCRPD. Whilst we are strong supporters of the UNCRPD, we do not feel that this amendment is necessary. The rights set out under the UNCRC apply equally to all children, including disabled children, as Claire Adamson pointed out. Now, I absolutely recognise the importance of ensuring that ministers and public bodies do all they can to support disabled children in enjoying their rights, and thank Siobhan McMahon for raising the points that she makes. However, reflecting this particular point on the face of the bill has some risks attached. We are seeking to promote a notion of universality through Part 1 of the bill. The notion that no matter what a child's background is, what their needs are, Scottish ministers and public bodies will work to promote their rights. To explicitly recognise some groups of children and not others could begin to dilute that message and so would go against the grain of what we're trying to achieve. The fact that we're not making explicit reference to disabled children absolutely does not detract from the commitment that we are making to them. So whilst I'm supportive of the intention behind the amendments, I can't support the amendments in this group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I call Siobhan McMahon to wind up and to indicate whether she wishes to press or withdraw this amendment?
Thank you, Convener. I have listened to the comments being made, and as I said, I argued for the universality. When we mention other children, I don't think it's a huge leap to mention disabled children, and I think it would be an additional assurance to have the UNCRPD in this bill, and therefore I press my amendments.
Thank you very much. The question is that Amendment 191 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. There will be a division. With those members who wish to support Amendment 191, please show. Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 191, total votes in favour, 3, and against 6, and there were no abstentions. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 120 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 119, Liam MacArthur to move or not move? The question is that Amendment 120 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed, therefore there's a division. Would all members who wish to support Amendment 120 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 120, 4 votes in favour, 5 against, and there were no abstentions. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 192 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 191, Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 192 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. There is a division. Therefore, can I ask members who wish to support Amendment 192 to please indicate? Okay. Those who are against? Okay. Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 192 is there were 3 votes in favour, 6 against and no abstentions. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 87 in the name of the Minister, grouped with Amendments 88, 193, 121, 122, 124 and 126. Minister to move Amendment 87 and to speak to all other amendments in the group. Minister.
Thank you. I move amendment number 87. As you know, the Scottish Government is generally satisfied that the ministerial duties included in Section 1 of the Bill strike the right balance. They offer a degree of protection in domestic law, ensuring that the UNCRC influences the decisions which are being taken by Scottish ministers. However, they also recognise that the courts are generally not the best place to adjudicate on issues of social policy. That being said, I previously made clear that we would be happy to consider how the provisions might be strengthened, building on the approach that I've just described. Amendments 87 and 88 are a direct response to the evidence we heard as part of the committee's Stage 1 scrutiny of the bill. If accepted, they will place an additional requirement on ministers to prepare a plan setting out how they intend to satisfy the duties included at Section 1.1 of the bill. The amendments also recognise the important role that children must play in developing that plan. We accept that such plans are useful in terms of holding government to account for the approach to children's rights, and that is why, as a matter of good practice, we have previously taken steps to prepare and publish documents of a similar nature. I can understand why both the committee and stakeholders would like to ensure that future governments do likewise, and I trust that the amendments represent a satisfactory response to the recommendation included in the committee's Stage 1 report that such plans be provided for on the face of the bill. Turning to Amendment 193, I'm not convinced that this amendment would offer any material benefit. Section 1.3 requires ministers to prepare a report setting out the steps they have taken to further the rights set out in the UNCRC. So ministers are best placed to identify the steps they have taken with this aim in mind. Therefore, I'm unsure what benefits would be offered by a consultation with stakeholders. I would suggest that imposing a requirement to consult on all of the bodies referred to in this amendment as excessive. Furthermore, I'm not of the view that primary legislation is generally the best place to describe when and how government should be engaging civic society in its work. We should be engaging, and we do engage with these organisations as a matter of course. It's for this reason that, once again, I'm not able to support Amendment 193. Turning to Amendments 121 and 126, which propose that reports be published in a child-friendly format, we recognise the importance of delivering activity which helps children to understand how their rights are being promoted and being protected. However, that activity must meet the needs of its target audience. It might not always be the case that a child-friendly report, whatever that would mean in practice, is the best way to get information across to children, and in those instances, it would not seem sensible to require the publication of such a report. Again, I'm not convinced that primary legislation is the best place to describe how children should be involved in the work of government. It often doesn't recognise the need for flexibility that is so important when working with our young people. So it's for that reason I'm not minded to support Amendments 121, 126 or 122, which has a broadly similar aim. Amendment 124 is a technical amendment and should be read in conjunction with Amendments 125 in Group 1 and 126 in this group. So in summary, I support Amendments 87, 88 in this group and don't support Amendments 193, 121, 122, 124 and 126.
Thank you very much. Can I call Liam MacArthur to speak to Amendment 193 and other amendments in the group?
Thank you, Convener. Can I start by saying that I welcome the provisions under Section 2.1 to produce a report every 3 years on steps taken, and certainly I welcome the amendments the Minister is proposing, responding to concerns that were raised by the committee at stage 1. The amendments in my name in this section are trying to make sure that the information that is prepared by ministers and other public bodies is as accessible as possible. Amendment 193 broadens out the requirements for who is to be consulted on reports, although I acknowledge that in referring specifically to voluntary organisations, this may run the risk of being seen to actively exclude others. So I was slightly concerned by the Minister's apparent suggestion that stakeholders would not be involved in the process of preparing reports, but maybe I picked that up wrong and she could perhaps clarify that in our concluding remarks. On Amendment 122, however, we would place an onus on ministers to promote public awareness and understanding of the key findings and recommendations of their children's rights reports. Meanwhile, Amendments 121 and 126 seek to ensure that the reports themselves are produced in such a way as to make them accessible to those whose interests they are endeavouring to further. The reference to the need for child-friendly language to be used, despite the Minister's concerns, mirrors similar provisions in earlier legislation, notably that which established the Children's Commissioner. It recognises that accessibility and raising awareness amongst children and young people will require creative use of, for example, internet, social media, television, and other methods, but it seems to be little point in committing to the production of such reports if every effort is not made to ensure that they are accessible as possible to all those who may have an interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call Neil Bivey?
Thanks, Convener. I support Amendments 193, 121, 122, 124 and 126 in the name of Liam MacArthur, and also happy to support Amendment 88 in the name of Eileen Campbell. As I previously said, it's important that the views of children are considered in Scottish Ministers' plans. As I've said previously, I'd like to warn against the possibility that we don't want this to be tokenistic, and therefore if the government don't support Amendment 193, I think it would be helpful to get more information and details on what practical steps the ministers and government will take to ensure that meaningful and real consultation is carried out with children going forward with the bill. In terms of Liam MacArthur's amendments, other amendments, I think they are eminently sensible to promote awareness and understanding the UNCRC. Creating child-friendly and accessible reports, I believe, is very much desirable, and I'm happy to support them.
Thank you very much. If I could just add a comment myself, I very much welcome the Government's Amendments 87 and 88. It is in response to the Committee's Stage 1 report recommendations, so I'm very grateful for the Government for supporting our views on that measure. I do share some of the concerns that Ministers already expressed about Amendment 193. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the purpose of it would be. It clearly is about a report that is covering issues that have already been dealt with, and I'm not sure what the purpose of consultation would be in that case. I also have some concerns about exactly what child-friendly language would entail. I'm not sure of the practical definition of what that would be. And certainly, of course, while we should, of course, make all of our publications as open and transparent as possible to as many people as possible, I'm not sure that in all cases that requires it to be child-friendly. Briefly.
I hear what you're saying, and initially I think in terms of looking at the language, I had very similar questions myself in relation to child-friendly language and how that might be defined. But given that we've already established this, there is a precedent, not least in the legislation establishing the Children's Commissioner. Presumably there is a recognised definition and understanding of what that would mean, and therefore all we would be doing is providing consistency between this bill and other pieces of legislation that this Parliament has passed.
I heard the member mention that comment earlier, and I think that's interesting, but I don't think that necessarily means that we should follow that particular example in this case. I mean, but I understand the point he's trying to make, and I'll certainly be very interested to hear what the Minister has to say in response to that in her remarks at the end of this section. And with that, can I call the Minister to wind up?
Okay, thank you, Convener, and I thank the members for their comments. As I said in my opening remarks on this group, I'm not convinced that Amendment 193 would serve a useful purpose. And to clarify for Liam McCarthy and the points that he raised, under Part 1, ministers are required to prepare a report setting out the steps they have taken to further the rights set out in the UNCRC. So I'm not sure what value consulting on this would have, as the report will be a factual representation of what steps have been taken. And for that reason, described earlier, I'm not convinced that primary legislation is always the most appropriate vehicle for illustrating our commitment to consultation. We have well-established processes and a strong record for consulting stakeholders on these and other matters, and that has been achieved without the need for legislative duties. There is now an expectation that stakeholders will be involved in policy making, and I see no reason for this to change, and that's absolutely correct. On Amendments 121 and 126, I remain unconvinced that a child-friendly report is always the best way to get information across to children. I also remain unconvinced that imposing duties through primary legislation necessarily represents the best mechanism for describing how we intend to engage with children and young people in our work. We currently undertake a lot of engagement with children and young people, and this bill is an example of that, and we do it in a number of ways. Keeping that flexibility of approach is therefore absolutely essential. So therefore I'm still not minded to support Amendments 121 and 126 or Amendment 122, which has a broadly similar aim. So in summary, I support Amendments 87 and 88 and don't support the other amendments in this group.
Thank you very much. The question is that Amendment 87 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are. Thank you. Can I call Amendment 88 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 87? Minister to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 88 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. Can I call Amendment 193 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 87? Liam MacArthur to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved. Can I call Amendment 121 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 87? Liam MacArthur to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 121 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? I'll say that again, I think. The question is that Amendment 121 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not all agreed. Therefore, there's a division. Can those members who wish to support Amendment 121 please indicate? Thank you. Those opposed to Amendment 121? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 121, 3 votes in favour, 5 against, 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 122 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 87? Liam MacArthur to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved. The question is that, the question is that Section 1 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. Can I call Amendment 194 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 119? Liam MacArthur to move or not move?
Moved.
That is moved. The question is that Amendment 194 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. There will be a division. Can all those members who wish to support Amendment 194 please indicate? Okay. Those who disagree to that amendment? And Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 194, 3 votes in favour, 5 votes against and 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 195 in the name of Neil Bibby, already debated with Amendment 119? Neil Bibby, to move or not move? Move. The question is that Amendment 195 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed, therefore there's a division. Will all members who support Amendment 195 please show? Thank you. All those opposed? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 195, 3 in favour, 5 against and 1 abstention. That amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 123 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 119? Liam MacArthur, to move or not move? Moved. Moved. The question is that Amendment 123 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed, therefore there is a division. Can all those who wish to support Amendment 123 please show? All those opposed? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 123, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. There was no abstentions. That amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 196 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 119? Liam MacArthur, to move or not move? It's moved. The question is that Amendment 196 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. Therefore, there will be a division. With those members who wish to support Amendment 196, please show. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 196, 3 votes in favour, 5 against. There was 1 abstention. Amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 124 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 87? Liam MacArthur, to move or not move?
Moved.
Moved. The question is that Amendment 124 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. Would all those members who wish to support Amendment 124 please show? Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 124, there were 4 votes in favour and 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 125 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 119? Liam MacArthur, to move or not move? Moved. That's moved. The question is that Amendment 125 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. With those members who wish to support Amendment 125, please show. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 125, there were 4 votes in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that... Sorry. Can I call Amendment 197 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 191? Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move?
To move.
That amendment's moved. The question is that Amendment 197 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not all agreed. Would those members who wish to support Amendment 197 please show? Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 197, those votes in favour, 3, against 6. Amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 126 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 87? Liam MacArthur, to move or not move? Not moved. Not moved. Can I call Amendment 198 in the name of Mary Fee, grouped with other amendments as shown in the groupings? Mary Fee, to move Amendment 198 and to speak to all other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. All of the amendments in my group are addressing the well-being and the needs of children affected by parental imprisonment, a group who frequently fall through the safety net in accessing support services. Amendment 198 would require reports published by public authorities, outlining the steps they've taken to secure better or further effect of the UNCRC requirement to include information about what they have done to address the wellbeing needs of children affected by parental imprisonment. Amendment number 204 would add in the Scottish Prison Service under service providers. Amendment 211 would help to redress the imbalance in children accessing service plans by ensuring that children's services include a strong focus on the support and services available to children affected by parental imprisonment. And Amendment 215 similarly is affecting the children's service plans, which would require the bill to explicitly recognise the need of these plans to improve the outcomes for children affected by parental imprisonment. Amendment 221 would place a duty on local authorities and each relevant health board in preparing children's service plans to consult children, including children affected by parental imprisonment. Amendment 229 would place a duty on public authorities to ensure that these reports include information about the extent to which they have provided services to support children affected by parental imprisonment. Amendment 233 highlights the need for guidance to be issued by the Scottish Ministers with regard to ways in which local authorities, health boards and other service providers should exercise their function in relation to children's service plans supporting children affected by parental imprisonment. Amendment 235 is essential if there are to be significant improvements in the access of children affected by parental imprisonment to key services, and the amendment would also help to promote a more consistent approach across Scotland to the type and level of services put in place through children's service planning to support children of imprisoned parents. Amendment 239 highlights the need to ensure that guidance is introduced about how service providers and the named person service should exercise their function in relation to children and young people affected by parental imprisonment. Amendment 241 is vital if we are to see significant improvements in the level of support available to children affected by parental imprisonment. And Amendment 241 would also help to promote a consistent approach across Scotland to support provided by the named person service. Amendment 247 highlights the need for guidance to be issued by the Scottish Ministers with regard to how a child's plan should support a child affected by parental imprisonment. And the amendment is designed to ensure that Ministers give a commitment at stage 2 that the Scottish Government will introduce guidance in how that will operate. And Amendment 249 is vital to help secure significant improvements in the level of support available to children affected by parental imprisonment, and would also promote a consistent approach across Scotland to support provided by the named person service. And I move the amendments.
Thank you very much. Can I call Neil Bibby?
Thanks, Convener. As my colleague Mary Fee has said, these amendments are needed to help improve the outcomes of children affected by parental imprisonment. There are an estimated 20,000 children and families affected by parental imprisonment in Scotland. This is a substantial number of children. As has been said, parental imprisonment can often have a negative impact on children in terms of mental health and other wellbeing indicators. These amendments, as Mary Fee said, will help to provide that children's services planning, CHILS plans and the named person service include a strong focus on ensuring that the children affected by family imprisonment are able to access and secure the vital support and services they will require to fulfil their potential and to make the most of their lives. I will be supporting these amendments in the name of my colleague Mary Fee, MSP, and hope other members will too, in order to make sure this bill is not a missed opportunity.
Thank you very much. Can I call the Minister?
Thank you. The majority of amendments in this group, as has already been indicated, highlight the needs of children affected by parental imprisonment, and I want to thank Mary Fee for raising the needs of this particular group. However, we don't believe the amendments are necessary, as the existing provision across the relevant sections of this bill provide appropriate coverage. By focusing on the needs of all children up to the age of 18, the bill will ensure that children's services planning as set out in Part 3 and the named person service as set out in Part 4 will cover these children, including any guidance and directions to be issued by Scottish Ministers. Moreover, where children in this group have particular needs, the provisions of Part 5 will ensure that the child's plans can address those needs. Similarly, reporting on the UNCRC set out in Part 1 should cover the needs of all children, not least those where unique issues may need to be highlighted. What is crucial is that the provisions of the bill as drafted are made to work for children affected by parental imprisonment. So we will ensure that guidance and, where needed, directions, as well as public body reporting under Part 1 of the bill will cover the distinctive needs of this group as appropriate. Amendment 204 is not necessary, as Amendments 90 and 91 in my name seek to clarify that the Scottish Prison Service will be covered by Part 3 as a provider of children's and related services. Those amendments remove Scottish ministers from the list of other service providers in Section 7.1 and instead add them to the list of persons who provide children's and related services in Section 7.2, but only when providing services in exercise of their functions under the Prison Scotland Act of 1989. The SPS is an agency of the Scottish Government and therefore shares the same legal personality as Scottish ministers. So Amendments 90 and 91 in my name seeks to describe the SPS in the correct way. For that reason, I don't support Amendment 204. So in summary, Convener, I don't support any of the amendments in this group.
Thank you very much, Minister. Mary Fee to wind up and to indicate whether she wishes to press or withdraw her amendment.
Thank you. Can I thank the Minister for the comments that she has made, and can also thank my colleague Neil Bibby for the supportive comments that he has made. Children affected by parental imprisonment frequently fall through the safety net of accessing support services. And the amendments that I am proposing have the potential to make a huge difference to the lives of children affected by imprisonment. And the bill does not go far enough to offer that support and protection for those children. And it would be a missed opportunity if my amendments were not included as part of this bill, and I wish to move my amendments.
Therefore, the question is that Amendment 198 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed, therefore there will be a division. Will those members who wish to support Amendment 198 please show? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 198, there were 2 votes in favour and 7 against. Amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 2 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendment 89 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 119? Minister to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 89 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. The question is that Section 3 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? The question is that Schedule 1 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendment 199 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 191? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
That's moved. The question is that Amendment 199 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. There will be a division. With those members who wish to support Amendment 199, please show. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 199, 3 votes in favour, 6 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 200 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 191? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move? The amendment's moved. The question is that Amendment 200 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, could those members who wish to support Amendment 200 please show? Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 200 was that there were 3 votes in favour, 6 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 201 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 191? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move? Moved. The question is that Amendment 201 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. With those members who wish to support Amendment 201, please show. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 201, 3 votes in favour, 6 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 202 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 191? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move? It's moved. The question is that Amendment 202 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, there's a vote. Would those who wish to support Amendment 202 please show? Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 202, 3 votes in favour, 6 votes against. Amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 4 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. Section 5. Can I call Amendment 1 in the name of Liz Smith, group with Amendments 2, 3, 4 and 5. Liz Smith to move Amendment 1 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. And can I begin by moving Amendment 1? At stage 1, the committee was asked for very considerable clarification about the specific role of the Children's Commissioner on account of the fact that there appeared to be some different interpretations of the new powers as set out in the bill. So the following amendments 1 to 5 are designed to clarify beyond doubt the powers to be conferred on the Children's Commissioner. With the general intent of the bill, I think it's fairly plain to the committee there is scope to tighten up Part 2 so that there is complete certainty regarding when it is right and proper for the Children's Commissioner to intervene in a case. I've listened carefully both to the government's perspective on that and to the Children's Commissioner, his recent letter. By adding the requirement that a general investigation must not duplicate work that's properly the function of another individual, Amendment 1 clarifies the role of the Commissioner in that respect. Likewise, Amendment 2, by inserting the word individual into line 27, introduces a clear distinction between Section 2, which refers to a general investigation, and Section 2A, which would concern individual cases. I think there's a lack of clarity in that. Although, at first glance, I think that might appear just a minor adjustment, Amendment 2 would increase the clarity of the entire bill on this section, would set down clear principles to be followed when the Children's Commissioner comes to initiate both general and individual investigations. After hearing evidence from the Children's Commissioner himself, it became clear that perhaps in some quarters, Part 2 of the bill was being interpreted rather more broadly than was first envisaged. This amendment, in tandem with Amendment 1, would ease such apprehensions and make it clear that a general investigation is to be carried out only when all other avenues have been completely exhausted. In turn, this would address the concerns of bodies such as COSLA and SPCO that, if not properly checked, these new powers could see the Commissioner tread on the toes of organisations such as Education Scotland, the Care Inspectorate, etc. Convener, as I mentioned, this committee asked the Scottish Government to clarify its understanding of the Commissioner's new power, and the response from the Scottish Government was that they did not foresee there being a role for the Commissioner to have extensive ongoing involvement in a case prior to local processes being exhausted. That was a welcome explanation, but in Amendment 4, by otherwise inserting otherwise after the word not, would see Section 2A carry forward that full intention. Amendment 5, Convener, would prohibit the Children's Commissioner from acting as a mediator when functioning under these new powers. It does this so that the wishes of the Scottish Government are properly reflected in the legislation. While the Children's Commissioner himself states that he does not intend to use the extension of powers for such a process, there is a danger that over time successors might feel differently. Amendment 5, therefore, would ensure that this position is upheld during the short, medium and long term. I hope these amendments represent the spirit of the bill, that this section needs to be strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I call Liam MacArthur?
Thank you very much. Just following on from Liz Smith's comments, I think the entire committee was slightly alarmed at what appeared to be quite a significant divergence in the views expressed by the Minister on the one hand and the Commissioner on the other about the extent of the latter's remit. And I'm also conscious that we heard evidence pardon me, from the Ombudsman about a potential overlap in their respective roles as well. So I think certainly this needs to be addressed and resolved before we proceed much further with this bill. In the absence, I think, of amendments by the Government to that effect, I'm inclined to lend support to Liz Smith's amendments. This is certainly, though, something that needs to be addressed before we get to stage 3.
Thank you. Can I call Colin Beattie?
Thank you, Convener. I'll be interested to hear what the Minister has to say on this, but my take is that Amendments 1, 2, 3 and 5 really have no practical effect. I mean, the bill already makes it clear that the Commissioner can't pursue an investigation unless he's satisfied it wouldn't duplicate the work of another body. So, to me, it seems as if that clarification is there already.
Thank you very much. Can I just make a few remarks myself before calling the Minister? I think Mr MacArthur's quite right in the comments he made about the evidence we received in committee. It did, I think, rather confuse matters, to be polite about it. But the committee was concerned, Minister, if there was a difference of view about the interpretation of this particular part of the bill with regard to the powers. of the Commissioner, and so certainly I would be grateful if you could give committee members some comfort about what the position actually is, and that there is a clear and shared view of the interpretation of the powers of the Commissioner in the bill. Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Convener, and I thank the members for their comments. With regards to Amendments 1 to 5, we are clear that no investigation by the Commissioner should take place until local processes have been exhausted, and we are clear that the Commissioner should not duplicate the work of other persons. The bill recognises those points. It makes clear that the Commissioner may not pursue an investigation which would duplicate the work that is properly the function of another body, and this would include any complaint resolution functions delivered by service providers. Turning to the issue of mediation, we agree that the Commissioner should not be taking on such a role before all other relevant complaints handling processes have been exhausted. However, once those processes are exhausted, we would not want to prevent the Commissioner from mediating on an issue where such a course of action is likely to result in a matter being resolved quicker and more effectively than could perhaps be achieved through a full investigation. Ultimately, it is about responding in a way which best meets the needs of the child. I also understand that the Commissioner has recently written to the committee confirming that his view is consistent with our own when it comes to this issue. So accordingly, we see no need to changes to be made and do not support amendments 1 to 5.
Thank you very much. Minister, can I call Liz Smith to wind up and indicate whether she wishes to press or withdraw her amendment?
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Minister, for some clarification of the Scottish Government's position. I accept the intentions that are there. I still think, in terms of semantics and some wording, I'm not convinced that this is absolutely clear in this section of the bill, and that's perhaps something we can consider before stage 3, as the Convener has intimated himself. There were concerns, very considerable concerns, about how some of that interpretation might be thought. So I will press amendments 1 to 5.
The question is that Amendment 1 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? No. We are not. Therefore, could members please indicate those who wish to support Amendment 1? Okay. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 1, total votes were 2 in favour and 7 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 2 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 1? Liz Smith, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 2 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, there will be a division. With those members who wish to support Amendment 2, please show. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 2 is 2 votes in favour, 7 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 3 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 1? Liz Smith, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 3 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 3 please show? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 3, 2 votes in favour, 7 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 4 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 1? Liz Smith, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 4 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, there will be a division. With those members who wish to support Amendment 4, please show. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 4, 2 votes in favour, 7 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 5 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 1? Liz Smith, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 5 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, would those members who wish to support Amendment 5 please show? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 5, 2 votes in favour, 7 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 5 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? The question is that Section 6 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendment 165 in the name of Jane Baxter, grouped with Amendments 168, 170, 171, 217 and 173. Jane Baxter, to move Amendment 165 and to speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. The amendments I have lodged in this grouping are designed to ensure that the Children and Young People's Bill includes a strong focus on tackling child poverty. The amendments will also help to ensure that tackling child poverty is at the very centre of children's services planning, and that children's services plans will make a significant contribution to tackling child poverty. I believe that placing a duty on local authorities and health boards to ensure that the aims of children's services plans include helping to tackle child poverty will also help to promote a more consistent approach to eradicating child poverty across Scotland. Amendment 217 states that children's services in the area concerned are provided in the way which is most integrated from the point of view of recipients. By recipients, it's reasonable to assume that this refers to children, young people, parents and carers. So we should say this explicitly, as it's important to have language at the heart of the bill which reflects the people affected. Accordingly, I move Amendment 165.
Thank you very much. Can I call Liam MacArthur to speak to Amendment 168 and other amendments in the group? Mr MacArthur.
Thank you very much. Convener, Amendment 168 and 173, which is supported by James Baxter, and I very much welcome that support. It reflects the findings of the report putting the baby in the bathwater, which was put together by a number of organisations operating in this field, and which I think lays particular emphasis on the need for a preventative approach in this area, a transition away from reactive, crisis-driven, costly services to governmental plans and services that make primary prevention real itself. I think one of the key recommendations from the Christie Commission. It would allow also local authorities that want to accord priority and afford major resources to primary prevention in early years to have a basis in Scots law for making that local choice. I think it puts on a statutory footing the support that we have across the Parliament for the preventative spending agenda, and therefore I hope it is one that will attract support across the committee, although I'm aware the amendment 171 in the name of Joan McAlpine I think seeks to do much the same thing, and therefore if my amendment 168 is not supported, I'll certainly be supporting the amendment 171 in Joan McAlpine's name.
Thank you very much. Can I call Joan McAlpine to speak to Amendment 171 and other amendments in the group?
Thank you very much, Convener. The amendment has, as Mr MacArthur has indicated, risen from putting the baby in the bathwater discussions with Bernardo's, the Wave Trust and others. The amendment addresses the recognition that children's services plans should show how children's services planning is achieving the aims of early intervention and preventative action, which are key principles underlying the bill as a whole, of course. The purpose of the amendment is to add the following text as an additional aim. 9(2)(a) ensures that any action to meet needs is taken at the earliest appropriate time, and that where appropriate action is taken to prevent needs arising. The effect of the amendment will be to require local authorities and health boards to set out in preparing their children's services plans how the services will work towards securing the achievement of the aims of early intervention and preventative action over the period covered by the plans. And I welcome Mr MacArthur's supportive comments from my amendment.
Thank you very much. Can I call Neil Bibby?
Thanks, Convener. I support amendments 165, 170 and 217 in the name of my colleague Jane Baxter. The purpose of these amendments, as has been said, are to ensure that local children's services planning contributes to the aims laid down in Scotland's child poverty strategy. I'm sure we all share the aspiration of making Scotland a better place for children to grow up in and to eradicating child poverty. Well, many children will grow up in Scotland with a great start in life, far too many, as we know, grow up in poverty. We of course need to direct resources, but we need to direct the focus of children's services plans, which must, according to the Child Poverty Action Group, play a vital part in developing and progressing the child poverty strategy for Scotland, and by ensuring that a consistent approach is taken across Scotland by local authorities, health boards and by other key agencies to tackling child poverty. We've heard concerns at stage 1 about the lack of joined-up vision coming from the Scottish Government in relation to this and other legislation and policies. We've heard the need to make rights real and to ensure policies and law practically help children. These amendments seek to do that and help to join up our approach to tackling child poverty, to not only help provide a consistent approach, but to strengthen links between the Child Poverty Strategy for Scotland and children's services plans. As the Child Poverty Action Group also point out in their briefing, that while local authorities in England and Wales have a legal duty to produce child poverty strategies setting out their plans for reducing child poverty in the area, no such obligations exists in Scotland. I therefore urge other members and the Minister to approve these amendments, which are also supported by Bernardo Scotland, the Poverty Alliance, Children First, Children in Scotland, Save the Children, One Parents Family in Scotland, the Church and Society Council of the Church of Scotland, who all support these amendments so that this bill is not a missed opportunity. I will also be supporting amendments 168 and 173 in the name of Liam MacArthur, and similar to Liam MacArthur's comments in relation to Joan McAlpine's amendment 171, I'd be happy to support that in those circumstances.
Thank you. Can I call the Minister?
Amendment 165 seeks to insert a definition of child poverty strategy for Scotland into section 7.1 of the bill as a result of the Amendment 170, which seeks to extend the aims of the plans to include tackling child poverty. Amendment 170 aims to ensure that child poverty strategy for Scotland is explicitly addressed by children's services plans, but we don't believe either amendment is necessary. The intention of the bill is for these plans to cover a wide range of activity related to children's services in each local area. Many of these services will focus on improving child poverty. Consequently, if it were to be on the face of the bill in relation to this, it may raise questions about why other key strategies have not been mentioned. Guidance on this part of the bill should ensure that these links are made, and we are extremely keen to work with relevant organisations to make sure that child poverty is properly addressed in guidance. Consequently, I don't support amendments 165 and 170. Amendments 168 and 173 seek to ensure the prevention of harm to children in the first place should be an explicit aim of children's services planning. We believe that the existing aims set out in section 9, in particular the aim in section 9.2a1, cover this. Children's services plans that aim to best safeguard, support and promote the well-being of children and young people will also focus on the prevention of harm occurring in the first place. We are of the view that this existing aim, in combination with the additional aims set out in Amendment 171, which we support, means that Amendments 168 and 173 aren't necessary, and we feel these issues can be further clarified through guidance. Consequently, we don't support Amendments 168 and 173. I do support Amendment 171 and welcome the Putting the Baby in the Bathwater campaign for highlighting the importance of early intervention and primary prevention in children's services planning. These principles are the foundation of what we're all trying to achieve across children's services, so we're happy to see the aim explicitly set out in the bill. On Amendment 217, I agree with the sentiment behind the amendment that parents and carers, as well as children, should be considered in children's services planning. But we believe the primary focus of planning of children's services should be the users of those services, which in many, but not all cases, will be parents and carers as well as children. The amendment suggests that all parents and carers should be part of the plan, and there will be some situations, for example child protection, where that can be problematic. Guidance is the best place to make clear how parents and carers should be taken into account in planning. For those reasons, I don't support 217. So in summary, I do not support amendments 165, 168, 170, 217 and 173, but I do support Amendment 171.
Thank you very much, Minister. Can I call Jane Baxter to wind up and to indicate whether she wishes to press or withdraw her amendment?
Thanks, Convener. I welcome the comments from across the committee and from the Minister. I'm particularly heartened to hear the amendment from Joan McAlpine. I think it's the only amendment that the SNP has put in for this morning, so that's very welcome. I think addressing poverty needs to be explicit in this bill and not implicit, so I'm still going to press the amendment.
The question is that Amendment 165 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Those members who wish to support Amendment 165, please show. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 165, 3 votes in favour, 5 votes against and 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. At this point, I'm going to call a brief suspension. So we will have a short suspension and we'll resume in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Can I call Amendment 166 in the name of Liam MacArthur, group with Amendments 167 and 203. Liam MacArthur to move Amendment 166 and to speak to all other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I think, as we heard in relation to the previous grouping of amendments, there is widespread cross-party support for the findings of putting the baby in the bathwater, and very much welcome the fact that the committee has agreed to pass Amendment 171, which I think perhaps picks up some of the concerns underlying Amendment 167 in my name, again supported by Jane Baxter in this grouping. So if I maybe turn to Amendment 166, again this reflects the findings of that briefing from Children First Wave Trust, Bernardo's and others, but reflecting the fact that I think there's a desire to see specific reference to younger children placed on the bill. I think as we all recognise that underlying the support for a preventive approach is a recognition of the fact that what happens in the very earliest days of a child's life can have a significant and lasting effect on outcomes thereafter, and therefore Amendment 166 I think tries to accord proper attention to the needs of children from birth and over the first 1,000 or so days of a child's life, and therefore I would hope that the amendment can attract the support of the committee, and I have pleasure in moving Amendment 166 in my name.
Thank you. Can I call Siobhan McMahon to speak to Amendment 203 and other amendments in the group?
Thank you, Convener. The aim of this amendment is to ensure that family support services are reflected in the Children's Services planning to inform local commissioning strategies. The effect of the amendment would serve as a clear guide to public authorities that family support services are reflected in local commissioning strategies. And I hope that can be supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call Claire Adamson, please?
Thank you, Convener. If I could first talk to Amendments 166 and 167. And in doing so, thank the agencies behind putting baby in the bathwater for the work that they've done and the briefings that they've provided to committee, which have been very useful. However, I do return to the position of the universality of the bill, and in getting it right that every child, by definition, we include those under the age of 3, and so I don't think that this is necessary, and the same applies to the needs for additional support for definition of services. I think this is already covered by the universality in the bill. And in Amendment 203, again, the currently drafted bill covers services that are for the benefit of all children with particular needs, and so I really don't think this amendment is necessary. I will appreciate the members' reasons for moving it.
Thank you. Call Liz Smith.
Convener, could I add my support to Mr MacArthur and to Siobhan McMahon? I think we've struggled over a long period of time about definitions in this bill, particularly when it comes to service providers, about who is and is not covered. And from that angle alone, I think it's important that we tease this out before stage 3, so that we have a comprehensive decision on that. So I would lend my support to all 3 amendments in this group.
Thank you. Call Jane Baxter.
Thanks, Convener. I'm pleased to support these amendments as they support the principle of ensuring children's service plans apply from birth, and that we recognise the importance of the earliest years of a child's life when developing children's services plans. I believe Amendment 167 is especially important, as we know that for too many children it can take a considerable period of time for a diagnosis to be made or a formal recognition of a child's additional support needs, and without this it could be a matter of crucial months or years before a child's needs are taken into account.
Thank you very much. If there are no other members, I'll just make some brief remarks myself. I think, while I very much support the principle of this group of amendments, I have to say I disagree with Liz Smith. I think it is pretty clear that the bill covers all children. I don't think it's necessary to start to single out certain groups of children within, on the face of the bill. Certainly, Liz.
Convener, I think there are some semantic issues within the bill about who is and who is not actually classified. The terminology service provider is different in different parts of the bill, and I think that's one of the issues that needs some clarity.
Well, it's an interesting point, but I think that in terms of certainly, for example, 166, the amendment certainly covers, or it adds in, including infants and children aged under 3. I don't think that's necessary. I think we are covered for that area, and therefore I don't support that, not because I don't support the principle, but because I think it's already covered in the bill and it doesn't add anything. I think the same is true of some of the other parts of the bill. some of the other amendments. Therefore, I don't think I'll be supporting these amendments. Therefore, can I call the Minister?
Thank you, Convener. We believe Amendment 166 isn't necessary, as the existing definition already covers services for children generally, including those under 3 definitions are all made very clear in each definition section in the bill. The Amendment 166 echoes proposals put forward in the Putting the Baby in the Bathwater campaign, which, like other members have indicated, we welcome and congratulate the work that they have done on the bill. Now, we absolutely share the policy goals lying behind the campaign and will ensure that guidance makes clear that children's services plans should cover services for children up to the age of 3. Consequently, I don't support Amendment 166. Amendment 167 aims to ensure that children's services planning covers services for children with both suspected as well as confirmed additional support for learning needs. The amendment is not necessary, as the existing definition at section 7(1)(a) would cover this. Moreover, we would want to ensure in guidance that planning should cover services for children with suspected as well as confirmed needs of this sort. Consequently, we don't support Amendment 167. Amendment 203 has a good policy intention to ensure children's services planning covers support for the families of children with particular needs. We believe children's services planning should include support for family in their caring roles for these children, and believe that this is already covered by services that are for the benefit of children with needs of this particular type, as currently drafted. Guidance can make this more explicit. However, as drafted, this amendment does not make clear what services for those families would be covered, and that could undermine the focus of this planning on children's services. Consequently, we don't support Amendment 203. So in summary, we don't support any of the amendments in this group.
Thank you very much. Can I call Liam MacArthur to wind up and to indicate whether he wishes to press or withdraw Amendment 166?
Thank you, Convener. Despite the concluding sentence of those remarks, I think I would welcome the contributions from colleagues and from the Minister, which have generally been consensual in tone. I think in relation to the concerns, Convener, that you raised and indeed Claire Adamson raised about specifically Amendment 166, I don't think that this in any way detracts or strikes at the heart of the principle of universality, but I think indeed recognises the particular importance of those very earliest years. And indeed, I think 166 complements the Amendment 171 that we've already passed as part of the previous grouping of amendments. I'm supportive also of Siobhan McMahon's amendment in this grouping, but just to confirm, I'll be pressing Amendment 166 in my name.
Thank you very much. The question, therefore, is that Amendment 166 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? No. We are not. Therefore, could those members who wish to support Amendment 166 please indicate? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 166, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 167 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 166? Liam MacArthur to move or not move? Moved. The question is that Amendment 167 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Could those members who wish to support Amendment 167 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 167, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 203 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 166? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
It's moved. The question is that Amendment 203 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, there will be a division. Can those members who wish to support Amendment 203 please show? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 203, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 90 in the name of the Minister, grouped with Amendments 91, 92, 93, 94, 96, 97, 98, 99 and 100. Minister to move Amendment 90 and speak to all other amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I move Amendment number 90. Amendments 90 to 94, 96, 99 and 100 clarify the reference to Scottish ministers with respect to the role of the Scottish Prison Service. In particular, they remove Scottish ministers from the definition of other service providers in Section 7.1 and instead list them in Section 7.2 as persons who may provide children's or related services as the SPS. The bill on introduction listed the Scottish ministers as an other service provider, and this has had some unintended consequences. For example, by virtue of Section 7.4, ministers would be obliged to consult themselves before bringing forward an order under Section 7.3. The purpose of Amendments 90 to 94, 96, 99 and 100 is to clarify how Part 3 should apply to the Scottish ministers when providing services as the SPS. Amendments 97 and 98 address another set of unintended consequences. Section 10.7 of the bill, as introduced, means that the agreement of all the other service providers to the draft Children's Services Plan is required before it can be submitted to ministers and published. In some circumstances, this could mean that an other service provider withholding their agreement could prevent a plan being published should the issue not be resolved. Therefore, I have lodged Amendment number 97 to avoid disagreements preventing a plan from being finalised by removing Section 10.7. At the same time, a new subsection 8 would enable any disagreements with the plan to be publicly set out and require Scottish ministers, as the SPS and other service providers, to prepare and publish a notice setting out their reasons for disagreeing with a matter in the plan. The combined effect of these changes is to remove this power of veto and require a public statement of any disagreement. This will not affect the existing requirement for service providers to be consulted and participate in the development of plans as a result of Section 10 as a whole. The corresponding Amendment 98 to Section 12 is also needed. Its purpose is to prevent Scottish ministers and other service providers being bound to implement a matter in a plan which they might disagree, in line with the notice set out in Section 10.8. The effect of the amendment will be that Scottish ministers and other service providers would not be compelled to provide relevant services in line with the plan, but only to the extent of the matter with which they disagree. Therefore, I urge you to support all of the amendments in this group, 90 to 94 and 96 to 100.
Thank you very much. As no other members have indicated they wish to speak, Minister, do you need to wind up?
I'll waive that. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 90 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? You're agreed. Can I call Amendment 204 in the name of Mary Fee, already debated with Amendment 198? Mary Fee, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 204 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not. Therefore, there will be a division. Can those members who wish to support Amendment 204 please show? Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 204, 2 in favour, 7 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 205 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, grouped with other amendments as shown in the groupings? Siobhan McMahon to move Amendment 205 and to speak to all other amendments in the group.
Thank you. The bill introduces a new right for young people leaving care to request assistance and support from a local authority up to the age of 25. Although this is to be welcomed, as it will support some of Scotland's most vulnerable young people, it falls short of supporting all vulnerable young people. My amendments aim to support young disabled people transitioning into adult life. It specifically requires a children's service plan to be prepared with a view to ensuring that transitions are planned well in advance. This would support the transitions process and would be of particular benefit to those young disabled people who have less complex support needs and for whom the adult social care assessment frameworks may mean that they fall short of being assessed for a formal care plan as they move into adulthood and independent living. Amendment 207 specifically addresses that whilst the Education Additional Support for Learning Scotland Acts 2004 and 2009 make provision for transitional planning, this is only applicable to those disabled young people who have been assessed as having an additional support for learning need via a coordinated support plan or individualised education plan, and the powers of the ASL Act do not extend beyond the responsibility of the Education Authority to develop a plan. That is, that the Act cannot place duties on other public bodies to comply beyond school leavers' age. I therefore move the amendments in my name.
Thank you. Can I call Liam MacArthur to speak to Amendment 237 and other amendments in the group?
Thank you, Convener. I certainly echo the sentiments expressed by Siobhan McMahon, which are very much the same that underlie Amendment 237 in my name. Notwithstanding the safeguards that are currently in place, I'm certainly aware from casework in my own constituency, I suspect colleagues have experienced the same, of children progressing through the system who feel as if they fall off a cliff edge on reaching adulthood, and I don't think yet we've got that transition transition planning right. Often these people are the most vulnerable, and that transition stage is absolutely critical. My amendment 237 seeks to try and ensure that that is well embedded for all those that need it, and that indeed young people are kept fully informed and involved in the process of transition planning. And therefore I would hope that this is an amendment that can command support across the committee and from the government. So I will be moving that in due course.
Thank you very much. Can I call George Adam?
I agree in principle with much of what's been said with regards to this, but with 218 and 210, there could cause some confusion at a local level, where you've got adult services and children's services working together and trying to cross over at one point. And I think you could end up with a situation where some of the children services may suffer from that point of view. So I think, although I agree in principle, I just think there are some problems with the whole ideal putting it forward, and I think it would be less than practical, just out there in the real world trying to make it work.
Thank you very much. Can I call the Minister?
Our provisions on children's services planning in Part 3 of the Bill recognise that children deserve dedicated and integrated planning that makes clear how services are responding to their needs. The bill as a whole is based on the idea that children require coordinated and targeted support across all the range of services that can support their well-being at a strategic level, as well as the planning for each individual child. To widen such planning to include young persons up to the age of 25 risks diluting the focus of children's services planning. The services that children require are not always the same as those that young adults require, and to combine both into the same set of plans runs a risk of overcomplicating planning, potentially resulting in plans that do not address the needs of children and young people or young adults in any detail that they deserve. Nevertheless, we believe that good transition planning is essential for those children whose needs will require continuing support into adulthood. Planning for this should be covered by children's services plans. The existing provisions of the bill allow for this. It's hard to see how the absence of good transition planning would best safeguard, support and promote the well-being of children who are approaching 18 and left in uncertainty over how they will continue to be assisted. And we... yes, sorry.
I'm very grateful to the Minister taking an intervention. She talks about the current provisions allowing for such planning to take place, and I think we're all aware of where good practice exists, and thankfully it's not the case that every vulnerable child moving into adulthood finds themselves falling off a cliff edge. But nevertheless, despite the provisions that currently exist, that still does happen, and therefore rather than simply allowing for it, is there not an opportunity in this bill to actually require that transition planning to happen as a matter of course?
I thank the member for his intervention, and do acknowledge the point that he makes that there is good practice that exists right across Scotland, and that's something that I think we should draw on. But I think this issue is best properly addressed in guidance, and would see that as the opportunity within the bill to ensure that that transition planning is done in the most appropriate way to support those young people who need that additional support into adulthood. So happy again, always to engage with that wider range of stakeholders who have been pushing for these amendments to ensure that that guidance is as robust as it can be. And for those reasons being that we believe that this is best approached through guidance, we don't support the amendments of this group, but do want to acknowledge the amendments and the spirit of the amendments in which Siobhan and Liam have talked about today.
Thank you very much. Can I call Siobhan McMahon to wind up and to indicate whether she wishes to press or withdraw Amendment 205?
Thank you, and thank you, Minister, for your comments. And while I disagree with the conclusion of your comments, I do understand that progress has been made in this area. However, as Liam MacArthur has said, and I appreciate the support he brings to this, the problem that maintains for lots of third sector organisations, for parents who are in this situation and for the children themselves, is that they're falling through a hole at the minute, and there isn't the services there, and confusion exists already, and those amendments seek to address this in law rather than in guidance, and that's the reason I'll be pressing my amendments.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 205 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not. Therefore, would those members who wish to support Amendment 205 please show? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 205, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. Therefore, that amendment is not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 52 in the name of Liz Smith, grouped with other amendments as shown in the groupings? Liz Smith to move Amendment 52 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener, and may I move Amendment 52. This has been a complex area of the bill regarding the two terms well-being and welfare. I think all of us know in our hearts that well-being sounds just that little bit better than welfare. It seemed to be a bit more holistic, and something that perhaps is missing from various other parts of legislation. Having said that, the more we go into this, I think it is extremely difficult to define the term well-being. And I think we're going to find that in practical terms, the law would simply come back to welfare. And that's irrespective of the Shonari indicators, which have obviously been successful up to a point. And I know there are subdivisions within Shonari within some of the local authorities, which again have been helpful up to a point. But I do think that the term well-being is fraught with many practical difficulties. I think, as I say, while it's a more holistic term, I think it's a little more vague, and therefore it is not helpful in the context of this bill, because I think that there is a conflation between the two terminologies, and I think that could give rise to complications and confusion regarding the duties of certain service providers. Specifically, Amendment 52 would define a related service as one provided in a local authority which, though not a children's service, is capable of having a very significant effect on the welfare of the child. Amendment 53 ensures that children's services are provided in a way which best safeguards, supports and promotes the welfare of the child in the area concerned, while Amendment 54 performs a similar duty on related services. Again, it would ensure that in the area concerned, such services are provided in a way which safeguards, supports and promotes the welfare of children. Amendment 55 relates to the implementation of Children's Services Plan. It would ensure that Section 2 would not apply to the extent that the person providing the service considers that to comply would risk adversely affecting the child's welfare. Amendment 56 would guarantee that the annual report published by either a local authority or the Health Board would take into account the extent to which the provision has been achieved in relation to the welfare of children in areas prescribed by Scottish ministers. Amendment 57 relates to Part 4 of the bill. It would define one of the functions of a named person as, where appropriate, promoting, supporting or safeguarding the welfare of that child. Once again, by substituting well-being for welfare, it's hoped that the bill would offer better service with greater clarity with regard to their duties. Finally, Amendment 64 relates to the information sharing aspect. It would see a service provider divulge information in circumstances where it might be relevant, depending on how we vote later on the bill on that, to the exercise of any function which affects or may affect the welfare of a child or young person in question. Convener, I feel that unless well-being is much more tightly defined, problems could arise with children's services to carry out a whole range of complex, even slightly esoteric tasks. By making welfare the standard term throughout the bill, not only would a greater degree of clarity emerge, but it would come into line with major pre-existing legislation which rarely refers to well-being at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call Colin Beattie?
Thank you, Convener. These amendments which seek to replace the term well-being with welfare, I think they hit at an essential element of this bill. A core concept of this bill is this change from the more restricted term welfare to a wider, more holistic term, as Liz Smith has mentioned, in the use of the word well-being. I mean, the bill consultation showed that 90% of respondents agree that a wider understanding of well-being should underpin our proposals. I would therefore be quite concerned if that terminological change actually took place.
Thank you very much. Jane Baxter.
Thanks, Convener. I don't support this group of amendments. I think so much of the work that we do for young people, and especially in terms of GIRFIC, is absolutely based on the concept of well-being, and I think that wider, more holistic approach is something I absolutely support, and I'd be worried about us moving away from that. I'd like to ensure that the concept of well-being is embedded in this bill as much as it can be. So I don't support these amendments.
Thank you. I call Liam MacArthur.
Thank you very much. I mean, clearly at stage one, there was a concern at the broadening out of the scope beyond welfare to well-being. I think principally in relation to the effect that this would have in targeting resources, which was obviously raised with us by a number of witnesses, and perhaps a concern also that there may be a redirection of focus in some areas that wouldn't be helpful. But nevertheless, I think as others have indicated, in terms of the overall effect of giving legal status to GIRFEC, I'd be concerned that these amendments rather undermine that process, so can't support them.
No other members before I bring in the Minister. I'll just agree with Colin Beattie, Elaine MacArthur and Jane Baxter on this point. I think this would be a step in the wrong direction to remove wellbeing and replace with welfare. I do think, as Colin Beattie has said, it does rather strike at the heart of what this bill is trying to do, and therefore I, like other members, will not be supporting these amendments. But can I call the Minister?
Thank you, Convener. Part of what we are seeking to achieve with the bill is the promotion of early intervention and prevention. Adopting the concept of wellbeing and taking that more holistic approach should encourage people to identify concerns at an earlier stage, as has been mentioned by Colin Beattie and yourself. Rather than using a concept of welfare, which has been interpreted variously by services across a number of different pieces of legislation, we wanted to establish a clear common definition of wellbeing that captures our early intervention principles and the advice of professionals working across children's services in Scotland. The concept of wellbeing we have set out in the bill is already used widely and well understood by practitioners. Wellbeing is therefore already embedded in practice, and to dispense with it would seriously impact on the ability of practitioners to take forward early intervention and remove a concept that is already accepted and widely implemented across Scotland. Convener, you and Liam and Jane Baxter also acknowledged that wellbeing is the foundation of the GIRFEC approach, and it has provided a common language for practitioners in taking forward GIRFEC across Scotland. It's also a concept that was clearly endorsed in our consultation for the bill, where 90% of respondents agreed that a wider understanding of a child or young person's wellbeing should underpin our proposals. These views were echoed in the evidence brought before the committee. For example, in his written evidence to the committee, Professor Norrie supported the use of wellbeing as opposed to welfare, saying that the bill, and especially the wellbeing provisions, is not about compulsory intervention, but about seeking to avoid the need for compulsory intervention. A number of children's charities also spoke before the committee about the importance of setting out wellbeing in the bill. So for those reasons that I've outlined, I don't support the amendments in this group.
Thank you very much. Can I call Liz Smith to wind up and indicate whether she wishes to press or withdraw?
Thank you, Convener. Thank you to the comments to members for the comments that they've made. I entirely accept that. I think we would all like to have the concept, and I think the word concept is interesting in the defence of this term for well-being. It's a concept. Where my concern is very difficult in law to define it. And if we are already confident that it is being well used by guidance, then that's one of the reasons why I don't see why it has to go onto the face of legislation, because I think it is an extremely difficult word to define. And so I will press 52.
Thank you very much. The question, therefore, is that Amendment 52 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Would those members who wish to support Amendment 52 please show? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 52, 1 vote in favour and 8 against. Therefore, Amendment 52 is not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 206 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 206 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, could those members who wish to support Amendment 206 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 206, 4 votes in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Amendment 207 be agreed to. Sorry, can I call Amendment 207 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move?
Move.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 207 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not, therefore, with those members who wish to support Amendment 207, please show. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 207, 4 votes in favour and 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 208 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 208 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, can members who wish to support Amendment 208 please show? Thank you. Those against? Thanks. The result of the vote on Amendment 208, 4 votes in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 91 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90? Minister to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 91 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. Call Amendment 209 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon to move or not move? The question is that Amendment 209 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not all agreed. Therefore, for those who wish to support Amendment 209, please show. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 209, 4 in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 210 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved. The question is that Section 7 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I call Amendment 211 in the name of Mary Fee, already debated with Amendment 198? Mary Fee to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 211 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 211 please show? Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 211, 2 votes in favour, 7 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 212 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move? Moved. The question is that Amendment 212 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. With those members who wish to support Amendment 212, please show. Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 212, 4 in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 8 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I call Amendment 213 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
Moved. The question is that Amendment 213 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. With those members who wish to support Amendment 213, please show. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 213, 4 in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 168 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 165? Liam MacArthur to move or not move?
On the basis we pass 171, not moved.
Not moved. The question is that, can I call Amendment 53 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 52?
Not
Liz
moved.
Smith to move or not move?
Not moved, I say.
Not moved. Thank you. Can I call Amendment 214 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205? Siobhan McMahon to move or not move? Moved. The question is that Amendment 214 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 214 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 214 were 4 votes in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 215 in the name of Mary Fee, already debated with Amendment 198? Mary Fee to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 215 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 215 please show? Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 215, there was 2 votes in favour, 7 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 169 in the name of Neil Bibby, already debated with Amendment 119? Neil Bibby to move or not move?
Move. The
question is that Amendment 169 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. We are not all agreed, therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 169 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 169, 3 votes in favour, 5 against and 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 170 in the name of Jane Baxter, already debated with Amendment 165. Jane Baxter, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 170 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, would those members who wish to support Amendment 170 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 170, 3 votes in favour, 5 against, with 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 171 in the name of Joan McAlpine, already debated with Amendment 165. Joan McAlpine, to move or not move? The question is that Amendment 171 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are all agreed. Can I call Amendment 216 in the name of Mark MacDonald? And can I welcome Mark MacDonald to the committee this morning? Grouped with other amendments as shown in the groupings, can I point out that if Amendment 244 is agreed to, I cannot call Amendment 183 because, in the group views of child in relation to child's plan because of preemption. Can I ask Mark MacDonald to move Amendment 216 and I speak to all other amendments in the group?
Thank you very much, Convener. Move Amendment 216. Can I begin by thanking the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists who I met with on a number of occasions to discuss these amendments. I should state at the outset that these amendments are certainly the amendments in my name. I intend to be probing amendments to look at whether the issues that are raised within them can be put on the government's agenda when it comes to the drafting of the guidance that will relate to the bill. I think it's worth putting in context, Convener, in relation to speech and language and communication needs, that around half of children and young people in deprived communities have speech, language and communication difficulties. Difficulties in speech, language and communication are the most common experienced by children and young people, around 2 in every classroom. The majority of young people in crisis have speech, language and communication difficulties, and more than 60% of children referred to psychiatric services, 88% of young unemployed men and a significant percentage of young men in young offenders institutes are found to have speech and language and communication difficulties. So the issues around speech and language and communication are obviously of critical importance, and that's why I think looking at how these can be encapsulated, for example, Amendments 216 and 219 look at how these can be encapsulated in children's service plans. Amendment 234 is looking at guidance for local authorities, health boards and other service providers to optimise speech, language and communication development for children and young people. Amendment 243 is looking to ensure that directions could also be issued about type of strategic action which could optimise that speech, language and communication development. 243 again is looking at the issues around child's well-being, something which I was listening to you debating around the issues between well-being and welfare, but looking at child's well-being and how speech, language and communication needs would factor into that, and looking at whether Section 31 of the bill would have recognised that. But again, that's maybe something that could be reflected through the guidance. Amendment 250, again looking at the strategic action that would follow from the child's plan, which would optimise speech, language and communication development and also what type of strategic action could be taken. I think Amendment 251, I think, gets to the nub of the matter. At Section 42 of the legislation, I note it says, regard being had to the importance of interactions and other experiences which support learning and development in a caring and nurturing setting. Now, interactions obviously will incorporate speech, language and communication needs, and it would be interesting to hear from the Minister if speech, language and communication factors into the government's considerations around Section 42. I'd also be interested to know if the Minister would be willing to invite the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists to be involved when it comes to the drafting and formulation of guidance in this area. In regard to the other amendments, a number of the amendments that Jane Baxter has tabled are extremely similar in nature to the ones which I have tabled, save for one, and that is the the one which I think it's 254, which relates to the establishment of a speech, language and communication strategy. I would say I have some sympathy, Convener, for that, given the success that we've seen from the autism strategy and the dementia strategies which have been put forward by the Scottish Government. I would say, however, that I don't think that the face of this bill is necessarily the place for that to take place, but perhaps through the tabling of the amendment, I think it could lead to further discussions and hopefully some positive moves in that direction. But I would close my remarks at that.
Thank you very much. Can I call Jane Baxter to speak to Amendment 222 and other amendments in the group?
Thank you, Convener. With the benefit of hindsight, it's clear that the issues of speech, language and communication are ones which we could have explored more fully in our earlier consideration of this bill. Children and young people need to be enabled to understand and express themselves, communicate to the best of their ability in order to firstly understand their rights and then to enjoy them fully. It seems like a very niche area to focus on, but when you look at the figures, I believe the need for these amendments speak for themselves. Around half of the children and young people from deprived communities have speech, language and communication difficulties, and these are the most common difficulties experienced by children and young people, 2 in every classroom, as Mark MacDonald has already said. Eliciting views of the child requires the child to have optimum opportunity and, where necessary, effective support provided to them to both understand information and express their views. To do this effectively, public authorities have to take into account the child's speech, language and communication needs and the child's optimum capacity to understand the process and to express their views. The penultimate amendment in this group is rather lengthy and refers to creating a national speech, language and communication strategy for children and young people. Significantly, Scotland, unlike other parts of the UK, currently has no comprehensive, unified strategic focus on optimising all children and young people's speech, language and communication development. A national strategy could deliver a major step change in children and young people's speech, language and communication development. If this amendment does not pass at this stage of the bill, I'd be keen to hear from the Minister what steps the Scottish Government will take to progress the measures outlined in Amendment 254 and not miss the opportunity presented in this bill.
Thank you. Can I call Liam MacArthur?
Very much, Convener. I listened with interest to Jane Baxter's comments about this being an area we didn't necessarily give sufficient attention to at stage 1. I think there are probably any number of candidates that would have a similar claim, and I think even if we doubled the amount of time that we spent at stage 1, we probably still would have only scratched the surface in terms of a range of key issues relevant to this bill. I think this grouping of amendments reflects very much the value, as Mark MacDonald indicated, of being able to lodge probing amendments. I don't think necessarily there's a feeling it would be appropriate to put these on the face of the bill, but I hope through having lodged them, having had a debate at stage 2, we ensure that the issues underlying them can be addressed through guidance in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the Minister, I would like to just add some comments of my own. I very much support the nature and the thrust of the amendments that have been laid by Mark MacDonald, but I do agree with Liam MacArthur about, and I know Mark said this himself, about there being probing amendments. I think it's very important that we get the opportunity at this stage to hear the Government's view about speech and language therapy and, of course, with regard particularly to strategy, as Jane Baxter mentioned. So we're very grateful if the Minister could explain the Government's position on these amendments and the general area that has been opened up now by Mark MacDonald, very helpfully bringing forward these amendments. Thank you. Can I call the Minister?
Thank you, Convener. I want to thank Mark MacDonald and Jane Baxter for raising the needs of this group of children, and we absolutely support the intent behind these amendments, as this is a group of children who should and must benefit from the provisions of the bill. However, we believe that the existing provisions already enable these needs to be addressed. The bill is founded on a holistic approach to the well-being of children and young people in all circumstances, with all conditions, as we've already debated. The bill has been drafted to ensure that the needs of any particular group of children will be supported by the different provisions, whether at a strategic level, as in the Children's Services Plan in Part 3, or at individual level, as in the support for individual children through Parts 4, 5, 6 and 7. This includes speech, language and communication needs. Moreover, we believe that guidance is the best place to address the specific needs under the different parts of the bill, indeed the needs of all groups of children with particular issues. So to provide reassurance to Mark MacDonald and Jane Baxter, we will commit to ensuring that the distinctive needs of children with speech, language and communication issues will be addressed by guidance as appropriate, and will work with appropriate organisations to do so, and appreciate the work of the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists in raising these important issues within the bill.
Thank you very much. Can I call Mark MacDonald to wind up and to indicate whether he wishes to press or withdraw Amendment 216?
Thank you very much, Convener. I realise you've had a marathon session, so I'll keep it brief. I'm satisfied that the Minister has taken on board the points that have been raised through these amendments, and I would seek to withdraw Amendment 216.
Thank you. Are members agreed to allow the withdrawal of Amendment 216? Okay. Thank you very much. Can I call Amendment 217 in the name of Jane Baxter, already debated with Amendment 165. Jane Baxter, to move or not move?
Move.
Move. The question is that Amendment 217 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not all agreed. Therefore, can members who wish to support Amendment 217 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 217, 3 votes in favour, 6 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 218 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move?
Move.
Thank you. The question is that Amendment 218 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 218 please show? Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 218, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 172 in the name of Neil Bibby, already debated with Amendment 119. Neil Bibby, to move or not move? Move. The question is that Amendment 172 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, could members who wish to support Amendment 172 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 172, 3 votes in favour, 5 votes against and 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 173 in the name of Liam MacArthur, already debated with Amendment 165. Liam MacArthur, to move or not move?
Convener, I realise I might have been a bit premature in not moving 168, but now that we have actually approved 171, I will not move 173.
I did think that at the time, but it's up to you. Thank you. Can I call Amendment 219 in the name of Mark MacDonald, already debated with Amendment 216. Mark MacDonald, to move or not move?
Not moved.
Thank you. Can I call Amendment 54 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 52. Liz Smith, to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved. Can I call Amendment 220 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move?
Move.
The question, therefore, is that Amendment 220 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 220 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 220, those votes in favour 4, those against 5. The amendment, therefore, is not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 174 in the name of Neil Bibby, already debated with Amendment 119. Neil Bibby, to move or not move? Move. The question is that Amendment 174 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 174 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 174, 3 votes in favour, 5 against and 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 175 in the name of Neil Bibby, already debated with Amendment 119. Neil Bibby, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 175 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, those members who wish to support Amendment 175, please show. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 175, 3 votes in favour, 5 votes against and 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 9 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I call Amendment 92 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90. Minister, to move formally?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 92 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. Can I call Amendment 176 in the name of Liam MacArthur, grouped with Amendments 223, 231 and 128. Liam MacArthur, to move Amendment 176 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you very much, Convener. As Mark MacDonald indicated, it's been a marathon session, so I'll try to keep comments relatively brief. Could I also put on record my gratitude to Bernardo's and Aberlour for their assistance in taking forward these amendments. I think, as we've seen in Section 8 of this bill, provides for local authorities and health boards to bring forward children's services plans, and I think that will help in terms of the coordination and the design and delivery of services. This in turn, I think, will improve outcomes for children and young people. And while the bill currently provides for local authorities and health boards to consult a variety of organisations and agencies, giving them an opportunity to contribute to the preparation of those plans, I don't think there is sufficient provision at this stage for including the views of children and young people themselves, and therefore my Amendment 176 seeks to address that. And I think also very much speaks to the fundamental principles of this bill about the centrality of children's rights and making sure that their voice is heard at every stage where it is appropriate. I think the other amendments in this group follow a similar pattern, seem to seek to achieve that objective of ensuring the widest possible consultation, and again having children's rights, in particular children's voices, heard throughout the process, and therefore I will be supporting the other amendments in this group, but for now I will move 176.
Thank you, Mr MacArthur. Can I call Jane Baxter to speak to Amendment 223 and other amendments in the group?
Thanks, Convener. Just briefly, we should include direct consultation with children and families as the recipients of services in both preparing children's services plans as well as the service providers themselves, and also report on how this was achieved. So I'd like to move these amendments.
Thank you very much. Can I call Liz Smith to speak to Amendment 128 and other amendments in the group?
Thank you, Convener. Can I agree with both Mr MacArthur and Mrs Baxter, and thank the groups who have been very helpful in their consultation on this. Amendment 128 requires Scottish Ministers to consult with the organisations which appear to fall within Section 10.2 that may have an interest in the guidance and such other persons as they consider appropriate. I hope that ensures that the voluntary organisations are consulted by Scottish Ministers about guidance in which these have an interest prior to the issue or revision of that guidance. Many voluntary organisations provide services for children on behalf of local authorities and other agencies, including health boards, and as such it's only right and proper that consultation provisions are broadened to reflect that. 128.
Not at this stage. Thank you. Thank you. Can I call Joan McAlpine?
Yes, thank you very much, Convener. While I'm sympathetic to the sentiments behind these various amendments, I'm not sure that they're actually necessary. In terms of 176, there's already a requirement in the bill to consult with organisations that represent the interests of children as well as children themselves, so I think that's unnecessary. 223 suggests that young people over 18 should be consulted, and my concern is that that would dilute the focus on children's services. It doesn't set a proportionate limit as to how much consultation would be required, for example. 231 would be difficult to undertake and enforce. For example, how would you measure the level and quality of users' expectations? And finally, Liz Smith's Amendment 128. I accept that the intention of the amendment is to ensure Bernardo's and other such organisations are consulted before guidance is issued, and I don't have a problem with that, but as a matter of course, the government do and have been consulting with a wide range of organisations and children and families on the bill's guidance, and it's inconceivable that the government wouldn't consult in the future, so I don't think the amendment really needs to be included in the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I call the Minister?
Thank you. Amendment 176 adds a duty to consult with children and young people in children's services planning. And we believe this amendment may have practical complexities which are best addressed through guidance, and which can set out how the views of children and young people are best represented in the planning process. There is already an existing requirement in sections 10.1b1 and 10.2a for those preparing a plan to consult with organisations which represent the interests of persons who use or are likely to use any children's service or related service. And those persons would, of course, include children themselves. Amendments 223 and 231 remind us that children's services plans need to focus on the needs of children and their families. However, the amendments are problematic. For a start, they refer to young people, which, given the definition of children in the bill as those up to the age of 18, suggests that children's services planning should extend to include services to support a much wider age group, which we believe would dilute the focus of planning on children. They also lack the proportionality that I believe is essential for how local authorities and health boards respond to the needs and views of people in their area. The proportionality is crucial here if planning is not to become a burden rather than a boon for the public bodies. And I believe that this is best addressed in guidance which should make clear our collective expectations over how users' views should inform planning. So for those reasons, we don't support Amendments 223 and 231. Amendment 128 seeks to ensure that guidance in relation to children's services planning is issued or revised by Scottish ministers only after consulting organisations falling within Section 10.2 and such other persons as they consider appropriate, in addition to the existing duty on ministers to consult with the persons to whom the guidance relates. Whilst we understand the intention behind the amendment, discussions on how this will work in practice will form part of the process of developing guidance around the duties in Part 3, where consultation with relevant organisations will be ensured. We don't feel it's appropriate to legislate for this on the face of the bill, so consequently we don't support Amendment 128. So in summary, we don't support the amendments in this group.
Thank you, Minister. Can I call Liam MacArthur to wind up and to indicate whether he wishes to press or withdraw Amendment 176?
Thank you very much, Convener, and I thank colleagues and the Minister for their comments in relation to the amendments, my amendment and the other amendments in this grouping. I've listened carefully to what has been said. In relation to my own amendment, I can't necessarily understand the concern there is in terms of the aspiration to consult with children and young people and development of these plans on the basis that we don't set a limit on that consultation or the quality of it. If that were a concern, then there would be a number of aspects of this bill that would presumably fall. I think if we are serious about putting children's rights and ensuring the voice of children is heard as a result of this bill, I think there are changes that need to be made, one of which is encapsulated in my Amendment 176 in this grouping. I think James Baxter set out the justification for our amendments and would have little to add in that respect. And in terms of Amendment 128 in Liz Smith's name, I think we're very conscious of a large amount of detail being taken forward through guidance, which is entirely right and appropriate, but I think it only serves to underscore the importance of making sure that as that guidance is taken forward, and indeed as it's subsequently amended, that the widest possible input from stakeholders with the relevant expertise is brought to bear, and therefore I think on that basis 128 would appear to be a sensible amendment, but for now I move 176 in my own name.
Thank you very much. The question is that Amendment 176 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are not. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 176 please show? Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 176, 4 votes in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 221 in the name of Mary Fee, already debated with Amendment 198. Mary Fee, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 221 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not. Therefore, with those members who wish to support Amendment 221, please show. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 221, 2 votes in favour, 7 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 222 in the name of Jane Baxter, already debated with Amendment 216. Jane Baxter, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 222 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, with those members who wish to support Amendment 222, please show. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 222, 2 votes in favour, 6 votes against and 1 abstention. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 223 in the name of Jane Baxter, already debated with Amendment 176. Jane Baxter, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 223 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Would those members who wish to support Amendment 223 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 223. 2 votes in favour, 5 against and 2 abstentions. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 224 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move? Sorry? Moved. The question is that Amendment 224 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed, therefore, would those members who wish to support Amendment 224 please show. Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 224, 4 votes in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 93 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90, Minister, to move formally?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 93 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. Can I call Amendment 94 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90, Minister, to move formally?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 94 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. Can I call Amendment 225 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205, Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move?
Move.
Moved. The question is that Amendment 225 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 225 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 225, 4 votes in favour, 5 against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 95 in the name of the Minister, grouped with other amendments as shown in the groupings? Minister, to move Amendment 95 and to speak to all other amendments in the group. Minister.
Thank you, Convener. I move Amendment 95. Amendments 101 to 103, 105 and 106 are minor drafting amendments to tidy up direction making and guidance powers in sections 15 and 16 of the bill to ensure drafting consistency with other similar powers elsewhere in the bill. With respect to Amendments 95, 104, 107, 111 to 116 and 188, the Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee in its report on the bill recommended that where guidance or directions are issued by ministers under the named persons, child's plan and wellbeing provisions in the bill, there should also be a duty for that guidance or those directions to be published. Our intention has always been to publish all bill guidance or directions. However, the bill does not currently specify this, and therefore we were happy to accept the committee's recommendations to do so. To ensure consistency of approach, this group of amendments also moves disparate guidance and direction provisions throughout the bill and inserts them into a new catch-all section which places a duty on ministers to publish all bill-related guidance and directions and provides that these can be issued generally or for particular purposes and to different persons for different purposes. Therefore, I urge you to support my amendments 95, 101 to 107, 111 to 116 and 118.
No other member has indicated they wish to speak. Member, do you wish to? Minister, do you wish to? No, you don't wish to wind up. Thank you very much. The question is that Amendment 95 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. Can I call Amendment 96 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90? Minister, to move formally. Moved. The question is that Amendment 96 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're agreed. Can I call Amendment 97 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90? Minister, to move formally. Moved. The question is that Amendment 97 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. The question is that Section 10 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. The question is that Section 11 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendment 226 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205? Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 226 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Can I therefore ask those members who wish to support Amendment 226 please indicate? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 226, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 55 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 52? Liz Smith, to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved, thank you. Can I call Amendment 227 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205? Siobhan McMahon, to move or not move? Move. The question is that Amendment 227 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, those members who wish to support Amendment 227, please show. Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Is it a tight vote? No. No. The vote is 4 in favour and 4 against. Therefore, I will use my casting vote in this instance to vote against this particular amendment. Therefore, the result is that Amendment 227 is not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 98 in the name of the Minister? Already debated with Amendment 90. Minister to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 98 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. The question is that Section 12 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendment 228 in the name of Siobhan McMahon? Already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 228 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. Therefore, with those members who wish to support Amendment 228, please show. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 228, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 229 in the name of Mary Fee, already debated with Amendment 198. Mary Fee to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 229 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Therefore, could those members who wish to support Amendment 229 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 229, 2 votes in favour, 7 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 56 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 52. Liz Smith to move or not move?
Not moved.
Thank you. Can I call Amendment 230 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 230 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not all agreed. Therefore, with those members who wish to support Amendment 230, please show. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 230, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. Therefore, Amendment 230 is not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 231 in the name of Jane Baxter, already debated with Amendment 176. Jane Baxter to move or not move? The question is that Amendment 231 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are not all agreed. Could those members who wish to support Amendment 231 please show? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The result of the vote on Amendment 231, 3 votes in favour, 6 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 13 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I call Amendment 99 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90. Minister to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 99 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. Can I call Amendment 232 in the name of Siobhan McMahon, already debated with Amendment 205. Siobhan McMahon to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 232 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. Could those members who wish to support Amendment 232 please show? Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 232, there were 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 100 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 90? Minister to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 100 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are agreed. Can I call Amendment 127 in the name of Liz Smith, in a group on its own? Liz Smith to move and speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Convener. Amendment 127 would remove the ability of local authorities or health boards to compel private and voluntary bodies, whether or not they have received state funding, to comply with demands for information, advice or assistance. Section 14 of the Children and Young People's Bill states that any person mentioned in subsection 2 must comply with any reasonable request made to them to provide a local authority and each relevant health board with information, advice or assistance in the purpose of exercising their functions under this part. The bodies mentioned in subsection 2 include the private and voluntary organisations previously described in section 10(1)(b)(1) that provide a service in the area which, if it were provided by the local authority, any relevant health board or the other service providers would be in a children's service or related service, as well as the bodies that deliver services under contract to public bodies 10(1)(b)(1) would include activities that are not funded or supported by these public bodies. I'm grateful to organisations like Bernardo's who have in the past been uncertain about why this power to compel has been necessary. Generally speaking, I think voluntary bodies are more than happy to comply with the information requests that come from some of the other bodies not previously in this. Consequently, Amendment 127 would remove the ability of local authorities or health boards to compel private and voluntary bodies, whether they have not received the state funding, to comply with the demands for information, advice or assistance. I move 127.
Thank you very much. Can I call Claire Adamson?
Thank you, Convener. I think over the course of the bill, we took a lot of evidence about information sharing and how it's going to be key to actually making this principle work. So I don't believe that this is an unreasonable part of the bill. I think any request from a local authority or health board under this section must be, by definition, reasonable. So organisations will not have to comply if they don't think it is a reasonable request. And these organisations could be involved in the preparation of children's services plans because of the role and in delivering these services. And I think it's perfectly reasonable that this is on the face of the bill.
Thank you very much. Can I call Liam MacArthur?
Thank you very much. I think just picking up the point that Claire Adamson is justifiably raised, I think there are concerns around who the arbiter of reasonableness is in terms of this relationship. I think, as Bernardo's have pointed out, the relationship that they and other voluntary organisations have with local authorities and health boards is a generally very positive and constructive one, and therefore introducing a new power of compulsion where the arbiter of reasonableness would appear to be either the local authority or the health board, rather than relying on the proper functioning of that voluntary arrangement, does on the face of it seem a strange power to be introducing. So I'll listen with interest to what the Minister has to say in this regard, but I certainly have a great deal of sympathy for the Amendment 127 in Liz Smith's name, and indeed the evidence provided by Bernardo's and others to support it.
Thank you very much. Before I call the Minister, can I support both Liz Smith and Liam MacArthur's comments about questions in this area? It would be very helpful, Minister, if you could clarify the position and your interpretation of what the bill says, because, like other members, I have also spoken to some organisations, Bernardo's mainly, about their concerns in this area, and clearly I can't imagine it's the intention to force organisations in the way that it could be interpreted at this stage. So it would help the committee enormously if you could clarify the position in your remarks. Can I call the Minister?
Thank you, Convener, for the opportunity to clarify. Amendment 127 is trying to remove a burden from non-statutory bodies to assist local authorities and health boards in the preparation of children's services plans by removing them from the scope of the duty in section 14.1. We think it is important that these bodies are able to assist in this way, as they have a key role in developing those plans. Local authorities and health boards, while accounting for a large share of the services that should go into these plans, will need information and commentary from a wider group of service providers to ensure that these plans have the maximum strategic impact. Allowing an opt-out from a duty to assist will undermine the intention of creating collective responsibility for planning services around the well-being of all children in an area. It is important to recognise that the duty in section 14.1 is for those persons mentioned in section 14.2 to comply only with, as Claire Addison mentioned, reasonable requests. Also, it does not apply by virtue of section 14.3, where the person considers that providing the information, advice or assistance requested would be incompatible with any duty of the person or unduly prejudice the exercise of any of their functions. These provide safety checks on the local authorities and health boards to ensure they can't abuse the provisions in section 14 to compel persons to act in a way that would undermine their functions or to be unduly onerous on them. So for those reasons, and I hope that's been helpful to clarify that position, I don't support Amendment 127.
Thank you for that, Minister. Can I call Liz Smith to wind up and indicate whether she wishes to press or withdraw?
Thank you, Minister. And could I just pick up the point you made about collective responsibility, because I think that's an important one. And just in terms of looking at the widest impact on the children, the best interests of the children, I think we have come across circumstances whereby certain organisations have not been very clear about where their responsibility lies. And I think sometimes some children have missed out because they haven't been able to access some of the services that they need. So on that basis, I will press 127.
Thank you very much. The question is that Amendment 127 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 127 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of the vote on Amendment 127, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 14 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendments 101 to 103, all in the name of the Minister and all previously debated? And can I invite the Minister to move Amendments 101 to 103 en bloc?
Moved en bloc.
Can I ask whether any member objects to a single question being put on Amendments 101 to 103? No member objects. Therefore, the question is that Amendments 101 to 103 are agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendment 233 in the name of Mary Fee, already debated with Amendment 198. Mary Fee, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 233 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. Therefore, can those members who wish to support Amendment 233 please show? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 233, 2 votes in favour, 7 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 234 in the name of Mark MacDonald, already debated with Amendment 216. Mark MacDonald, to move or not move?
Not moved.
Thank you. Can I call Amendment 104 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 95. Minister, to move formally?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 104 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Can I call Amendment 128 in the name of Liz Smith, already debated with Amendment 176. Liz Smith, to move or not move?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 128 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not all agreed. Therefore, will those members who wish to support Amendment 128 please show? Thank you. Those against? Thank you. Result of the vote on Amendment 128, 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. The question is that Section 15 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I call Amendment 105 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 95. Minister, to move formally?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 105 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes, we are. Call Amendment 106 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 95. Minister, to move formally?
Move formally.
The question is that Amendment 106 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. I'll call Amendment 235 in the name of Mary Fee, already debated with Amendment 198. Mary Fee, to move or not move?
Move.
The question is that Amendment 235 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We're not all agreed. Therefore, would those members who wish to support Amendment 235 please show? Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The result of the vote on Amendment 235, 2 votes in favour, 7 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Can I call Amendment 236 in the name of Mark MacDonald, already debated with Amendment 216. Mark MacDonald, to move or not move?
Not moved.
Not moved. Can I call Amendment 107 in the name of the Minister, already debated with Amendment 95. Minister, to move formally?
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 107 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. The question is that Section 16 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I call Amendment 108 in the name of the Minister, grouped with Amendments 109, 110 and 117. Minister, to move Amendment 108 and speak to all amendments in the group.
Thank you, Convener. I move Amendment 108. Amendment 108 replaces wording inadvertently left out of the bill on introduction. The amendment to Section 17(1) will ensure that the local authority, health board and other service providers' duty to comply with Section 12 is excluded from the direction-making power in Section 17. In effect, it ensures that directions must focus on issues of planning, not the implementation of plans and the delivery of services which are set out in Section 12. This is an issue of consistency. The new wording mirrors the wording already in place for Sections 15(1) and 16(1) with respect to guidance and other direction-making powers. Amendment 109 is a minor amendment to improve the drafting of Section 17(3) of the bill to clarify the persons whom Scottish ministers may direct to exercise planning functions using their power in Section 17(2)(b). The purpose of Amendments 110 and 117 is to remove the Joint Board's enforcement mechanism provided for in Sections 17(6) to 9 from the Bill. Following discussions with COSLA, it was agreed joint boards might result in the unnecessary transfer of powers from local authorities and health boards. The existing direction-making powers in Sections 16 and 17 are sufficient for enforcement, so I hope that you support Amendments 108, 109, 110 and 117 in my name.
Thank you. No other member has indicated the wish to contribute. Minister, do you need to wind up? Thank you. The question is that Amendment 108 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Call Amendment 109 in the name of the Minister. Already debated with Amendment 108. Minister, to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 109 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Can I call Amendment 110 in the name of the Minister? Already debated with Amendment 108. Minister, to move formally.
Moved.
The question is that Amendment 110 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? We are. The question is that Section 17 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? The question is that Section 18 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Can I call Amendment 237 in the name of Liam MacArthur? Already debated with Amendment 205. Liam MacArthur, to move or not move?
Given what has gone before, I move in hope rather than expectation, but I move.
But you're moving all the same.
I move all the same.
The question is that Amendment 237 be agreed to. Are we all agreed? Yes. We're not all agreed. You only need one to say no, Liam. Therefore, would those members who wish to support Amendment 237 please show? Thank you. Those against? The result of Amendment 237 was 4 votes in favour, 5 votes against. The amendment is therefore not agreed to. Given the time and the fact that we've reached the end of Part 3 of the bill, I intend to stop here today. We will pick up in the next meeting, which will be in January, where we have left off today at the start of Part 4, and we will also consider amendments to Parts 5 to 7 of the bill. The deadline for lodging amendments to Parts 5 to 7 of the bill is this Thursday at noon, and therefore can I thank members for their attention and for the Minister and her officials, and can I close the meeting?